Your next fridge, stove, dishwasher, or washing machine could soon cost a lot more. Quebec's Bill 29 aims to better protect shoppers by introducing a legal warranty of good working order for appliances. But a coalition of retailers says there's a catch. In order to comply, they say certain products could rise by 20 to 30%. They're also calling for a delay on the bill's implementation before costs start to spin out of control. Let's go to Anthony Amiel, the president of Corbeil Appliances. He's on the line. Mr. Amiel, Anthony, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Elias.
So let's talk about this. Why do you say this, this final phase of Bill 29? Why do you say it will increase the cost of appliances?
There's two fronts to that story, Elias. With this new regulation, which was passed by the government 3 years ago and announced this particular 6-year warranty for fridges, freezers, and cooking appliances, 5-year warranty for dishwashers, washing machines, and dryers. Today, those same appliances have either a 1-year, 2-year, or some other manufacturers offer a longer warranty. The ecosystem that supports the repair of these appliances is simply inadequate to meet the current demand, let alone the future demand that we're going to have for these kinds of repairs. To give you some statistics, the Ministry of Education has said that in order to meet current demand, we need to graduate in the province of Quebec alone 35 technicians per year. Year after year, we graduate less than 20 technicians. So already, with the current demand on the system, we've seen repair costs grow simply because there isn't enough labor to meet the actual demand. When we increase the duration of the warranty, we can imagine that that's going to continue to grow. The demand on the ecosystem can continue to grow and continue to drive up pricing unless we work with the government to put in place a framework where we get more appliance repair technicians out in the field, out in the market, into the schools, training in order to meet that new demand.
So respectfully, I get what you're saying there, but isn't the better solution appliances that don't break down so easily?
I don't disagree with you, Elias. And if we take a look at appliances from 20 years ago, 30 years ago today, the industry has invested and innovated significantly into their products. We're talking about much more energy efficient products. We're talking about products that have much more features like multiple cleaning cycles or even AI-assisted laundry that take out those particularly tough stains. The trade-off to that is that they've become increasingly complex, increasingly more complicated to repair. And the cost of those individual parts are very challenging, and the repair costs for those have increased. It's a very competitive environment. There's a lot of competition between Quebec retailers, national retailers, multinational companies. And the challenge with this law is that the retailers who are going to be placed at the front lines between consumers and manufacturers have no levers on the design, the conception, the availability of parts of these products. And we're going to be on the front lines with consumers forced to honor these repairs to then turn around and try and get our manufacturers to come to the table. And that's what we've been working with the government or asking the government for the past 3 years to meet with them and discuss how do we put a regulatory framework that focuses on consumer protection in terms of repairability, protecting consumers' buying power, because we believe that the increase in repairs will ultimately, by the manufacturers, be included in the price of appliances. And the example that we often use is an $800 fridge, which has $150 repair cost one time over the period of its warranty is one thing. If that warranty is 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, if we're talking about 6 years, then it's reasonable to expect that manufacturers will say, okay, well, this fridge will need 2, maybe 3 repairs. At $150 a repair, that's where we're thinking an $800 fridge might become $1,000 or more.
But it's just like, well, man, if a manufacturer's like, hey, we're going to have to repair this fridge 3 times, you got to make a better fridge. It's almost unbelievable to think that they'd bake that in, that a fridge would have to have multiple repairs over 5 years or 6 years.
I don't think that they bake in that there's going to be multiple repairs. What they're offering today is the consumer has the choice. They can choose between cost of an appliance's duration and a balance to what the consumer feels comfortable on spending. If a consumer today wants to buy an $800 fridge with a 2-year warranty and they're comfortable with that, then they have the choice. Tomorrow, the consumer won't have that choice, and manufacturers will have to build in those costs into the pricing. Now, alternatively, today, a consumer who wants to buy an $800 fridge or a $1,200 fridge but wants to benefit from an extended warranty, well, retailers here in Quebec do have programs that they offer, protection plans, that not only cover the potential repair of a future appliance, but also cover things like food that's wasted in the fridge if it fails, or going to the dry cleaner while the washing machine is being repaired.
Can I ask you, what percentage of customers buy one of those extended warranties, protection plans that you're talking about here? What percentage of people who buy a fridge add that on, or any other appliance?
I can't speak for the whole industry, but in our retail stores across Quebec and Eastern Ontario, it's almost 1/3 of consumers. So that's where consumers have the choice. If they feel comfortable with a lower cost and the potential risk of future repair versus another consumer who doesn't feel comfortable with that and rather pay for that protection upfront.
What's the difference? There's rules now, right? And I've heard from listeners that have gone through this. They have a product that fails after a couple of years, and the current law says there's no specific number baked into the law, but I think the way the law puts it now, a reasonable time. They've gone to small claims court, they win. So I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the current law versus what the government is doing here?
Well, the current law is that there's a reasonable duration, and that reasonable duration also varies based on the cost of the appliance paid and the expected duration of that appliance, versus the new regulation that comes into effect in October basically sets a minimum warranty for each product category. And so regardless of the price you pay, you will have to benefit from that warranty. In order to honor that warranty, given regardless of what price, I think that's where manufacturers are going to increase the cost to consumers.
What do you think for the consumer, right? How much more breathing room do they have? I wonder what you're seeing in your stores now, because they say, money is tight for everyone right now. So what do you think the impact will be on consumers if you've got to increase prices here?
Elias, and that's exactly the reason behind our coalition, is we are worried about consumers' purchasing power because of growing inflation in so many segments, and we do not want to contribute to that unfairly so, which is why we've reached out to the government. We want to sit down around a table with their experts, our industry experts, which were rarely, if at all, consulted. They did a study on economic impact. We got a phone call on a Tuesday at the Quebec Retail Council, and they had to submit the report by the Thursday. How do we get 220 retailers around the table? How do we get the experts around the table? How do we get the manufacturers around the table in 48 hours to determine how this law is going to impact consumers' purchasing power, as well as the competitiveness of Quebec-based businesses, Quebec-based retailers? We want to sit down with the government and find the framework that balances consumers' purchasing power, their right to choose, consumers' right to have good working appliances, as well as the competitiveness of Quebec retailers, an ecosystem of repair technicians that's available to support this environment, and to bring the multinational manufacturers to the table who have a responsibility to conform themselves to the consumer's expectations. But we also have to be realistic. Yeah. Quebec represents 2% of the North American appliance market. We can question whether or not an international manufacturer is going to invest in changing their product platform significantly in order to meet just that 2%.
Can I just ask you to wrap up here? Have consumers decided with their wallets that what they prefer is cheaper products that don't last as long, and they're just okay with replacements more often? In your estimation, is that what consumers truly want?
I think consumers have the choice today to pick whatever it is they feel comfortable with, whether that is a lower price with a shorter warranty or a better constructed product with a longer warranty. Today, the consumer has that choice. Tomorrow, with this new regulation, the government takes that choice out of the consumer's hands and imposes it on the entire consumer population. Will
certain brands walk on the Quebec market, you think? And maybe at the lower end, will they just say not worth it?
Some of them have suggested that. I don't know that they actually will follow through with that. Only time will tell.
All right, we're going to leave it there, Monsieur Amiel. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
That's Anthony Amiel. He's the president of Corbeil Appliances.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers. Powered by North by Northeast Music Festival. Taking place June 10th to 14th across Toronto. iHeart New Music. Stream now, online, on your smart speaker, and preset on the free iHeartRadio app.